Okay. Yeah, before we start, would anyone like to share what we discussed 2 weeks before? Uh, we discussed about different aspects of Karma Yoga and how Karma Yoga purifies our intelligence. These are the main themes. Okay, anyone wants to share? Okay, so this is so so these are the different aspects of Karma Yoga we have discussed. Uh, So the first is the permanent benefit. So whatever you perform, it is always there. Neha Bikramana Shosti, that verse. Then for in the path of Karma Yoga, Nishkama Karma Yoga, the intelligence of the practitioner is very focused. Vyavasayatmika Buddhi. Then that is being contrasted with the one who has a Sakama approach. Buddhaya Avyavasayanam, many branched, multiple branched. Then the next is material detachment. So Bhogaishwarya Prasaktanam. So if one is attached, he cannot do. So that's why he should be detached. Nistraigunya Bhava Arjuna. Though Arjuna, he has to externally follow the Vedas, Vedic rituals and all, but internally he should be detached. Niryoga Kshema Atmavan. Don't focus on increasing your material needs and don't try to protect your material assets. Then it's based on Upanishads, that verse which shows that a river can fulfill all the uses of the pond. So similarly, focusing on the Upanishad knowledge, you get everything. Then the verse karmanyevadikaraste. So what is that karma? That is varnashrama dharma. Karmanyevadikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. So but no enjoyment of the results. Then ma karma phalahitavu. No doership mentality. If there is doership mentality, then naturally there will be enjoyment mentality. We saw the example of a parent and a child. If the parent thinks that I am nurturing the child and all, naturally he wants to get some benefit from the child. Then equipoised in duality, samatvam yoga uchyate. So we saw the example of Abdul Kalam and Satish Dhawan, that video. So where both in failure as well as success, the focus is on the duty, the what is my role in this, rather than enjoying the results. So these are the primary aspects of Karma Yoga we have discussed. Then comes how the intelligence gets purified. Krishna explains how the intelligence gets purified in different stages through Karma Yoga. So first is Ube Sukriti Dushkriti, means both from Sukriti and Dushkriti, one is freed from both the pious reactions as well as sinful reactions. Then slowly, gradually, one is freed from the birth, from samsara, janma, mrityu, janma karma vinirmukta. So then the intelligence is freed from all the illusory conceptions of enjoyment based on Vedas, based on heavenly planets and all. Yede moha kalilam, means vyatitarishati. So then the intelligence is fixed on the Atma Gyan and the Varnashrama Dharma, Achala Buddhi. So then Arjuna asks, okay, so this is how the process, but how can I identify a person who is following the process and who has perfected the process? So that's why Arjuna asks these questions. Sita pragyasya kabasha samadhistasya keshava sitadi kim prabhaseta kim asita vrajeta kim. So these are the 4 questions. Kabasha means what are his symptoms? Kim prabhaseta. Kim prabhaseta means how will he respond to agitating circumstances? So in the world there is always some provoking situation, because of different reasons. So that's why how will he respond to such provoking situations? Then Kim Asita, how will he remain suppressing his senses? Kim Vrajeta, how will he engage his senses? These are the 4 questions. And Krishna will answer each of these questions in few shlokas in the coming section. So, yeah. So the first question answer, Krishna answers in one shloka. This shloka, Prajahati yada kaman sarvan partha manogata atmaneva atmane tushta sthita pragyasya tadochyate. So, so the first question answer is one who does not entertain the desires that are born out of sense gratification, means generated in the mind, because these are external. Why these are external? Because those desires come by interaction of senses with sense objects. So sense objects are external. So these desires have been formed artificially. So they are not natural to the Atma. So because of that, it is also possible to suppress these desires, to neglect these desires. So that is how a Sthita Prajna acts. Prajahati means gives up those desires. So then what he will be focused on? Atmaneva Atmani Tushta means the first Atma refers to intelligence and the next Atma refers to the soul, Atma. So the intelligence is focused on the Atma or the desires based on the Atma. So it in Karma Yoga, it is like being focused on Varnashrama Dharma and meditating on Brahman, etc. And for Bhakti Yoga, it is like being absorbed in sadhana and seva. Okay, so this is what we have seen till the last class. Now we will start with the Krishna's answers to the second question. How Sthita Prajna responds to provoking situations. So the first question, so there are 2 types of provoking situations. One is the situations, there is Adhyatmika, Adibhautika, Adidaivika. So the first shloka answers mostly Adidaivika and Adhyatmika. And the second shloka answers Adibhautika, about affection and relationships. First is about situations and temptations. Okay, so we will recite the shloka. Dukkeshu anudvigna manaha sukeshu vigata spruhaha. Pitaraga bhayakrodha sitadir munirichyate. Okay. So dukkeshu. So dukkha can come from 3 types, like Adhyatmika, Adibhautika, or Adidaivika. So any of these dukkhas, the Sitadir Muni is not disturbed. So then what he sees them as? He sees them as his prarabdha karma. So that way he will not be he is not disturbed. And Sukeshu. Sukeshu means like he may get opulences, he may get comforts. So even in that situations, he will not get carried away. He will not get carried away by enjoying them and wanting them more and more. But he will also see that I am getting these benefits because of my prarabdha karma. So Prabhupada always saw whatever he got and all. No? He saw them as his facility for service. He never saw it as for his enjoyment. Free from. Vitaraga means free from attachment to sense objects. So that's what people, we see they are absorbed in different things. Some are absorbed in making their body beautiful. Some are fearful of only the Sri. Aesthetics in yoga, fearful of. Then by with their post which they get in the world. Till children grow, till children are small, are very much obedient, may think, start decisions. But if somebody is possible, the children, they may angry. So in yoga, means Sthitadi, he will not have this kind of attack. The who is from attack. So these are his. This is how he responds. Okay.
Has a different angle of vision, and unless a Muni differs from other Munis, he cannot be called a Muni in the strict sense of the term. Nashav Rishir Yasya Matam Na Bhinnam. Mahabharat Varna Parva 313117. But a Sitadir Muni, as mentioned herein by the Lord, is different from an ordinary Muni. The Sitadir Muni is always in Krishna consciousness, for he has exhausted all his business of creative speculation. He is called uh, Prashanta Nishesha Manorathantara, Stotra Ratna 43, or one who has surpassed the stage of mental speculations and has come to the conclusion that Lord Krishna or Vasudev is everything. Vasudeva Sarvam Iti Samahatma Sadurlabha. He is called a Muni fixed in mind.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so here Prabhupada is explaining the meaning of Sitadhir Muni from a Krishna conscious perspective. That his conclusion is fixed that Krishna or Vasudeva is everything, and he reads Shastra and he does speculation, but all the conclusion he comes to always is this. Yeah. So then Prabhupada is saying that how from a Krishna conscious perspective, how a devotee sees something wrong happening, he sees it as the mercy of the Lord, and when he gets something happy, he gives credit to the Lord and appreciates the Lord's grace. Yeah. Then Prabhupada, but one fixed in Krishna consciousness has neither attachment nor detachment. Success or no success, a Krishna conscious person is always studying his determination. Okay, so in the next verse, Krishna explains how this Sthitadir Muni, or the man, or the devotee fixed in yoga, in karma yoga, how he deals with affection in the world and how he deals with various relationships in the world. Okay, we will recite the verse. Ya sarvatra anabhisnehas tat prapya shubha shubham.
Ya sarvatra anabhisnehas tat prapya shubha shubham.
Nabhinandanti So he does not have he has general affection for all as spiritual beings, as atmas. So he has general affection for people. He has general compassion and all. But he does not have any specific affection based on material calculations. So what it means is that okay, he is appreciating me, he's offering, so he always creates trouble. So that he did them, oppose them. So he does not have material affection, but at a spiritual level he has some affection. Okay, so Prabhupada writes, there is always some upheaval in the material world, which may be good or evil. One who is not agitated by such material upheavals, who is unaffected by good and evil, is understood to be fixed. Prabhupada is saying fixed. Mainly Prabhupada is focused on fixed in Krishna consciousness. But yeah, it's also fixed in Karma Yoga. That's okay. So this is how. So there are three we have discussed in the last three shlokas. That how a sthita prajna will not focus on the desires that are born out of mind, means desires for sense gratification, and then he is not disturbed by miserable situations, primarily adhyatmic and adidaivik. and he's not carried away by material comforts and facilities, and he does not pamper anyone, and he does not hate anyone. So you can take around 3 minutes, and you can give examples of these in Srila Prabhupada's life. So be brief, you can think, but you can explain yourself in 2-3 sentences. So one devotee can tell for each. I can take 3 minutes and think, and then we'll discuss. So these are the 5 questions you have to answer. Hare Krishna. So for the first one, Prabhupada never acted on mind's desires. Okay. Yes, Prabhu. Kishore, Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu.
Kishore, ma'am.
Yes, Prabhu. So Prabhupada always acted on the instruction given by his spiritual master and not on his mind's desire. So
Okay.
he, wherever he went, he did it for the cause of instructions given by his spiritual masters.
Yes, yes. Thank you. So yeah, so Prabhupada went to America. He always focused on preaching and all. He was not going like how the ordinary people go, visiting this place, that place, doing some enjoyment here, there. Okay. So for the second one, okay, Prasanna Gopal Prabhu, want to say for the second one?
Yes, Pradeep. Actually, we know that famous incident of while going to the Jaladut, he had 2 heart attacks. It's like a death-taking incident. Still, Prabhupada never felt anything demoralizing or returning back something. And then after even reaching also, after 1 year, Prabhupada's health was deteriorated because of the environment. Then he had to, after establishing 1 or 2 centers, and there were devotees, and he had to come to India to get medicine and get operated. And then
Yes.
still his enthusiasm was not down. He again came back and did the remaining part of the. We know that after like 8-10 years, he still continued. And in between
Yes,
there,
yes.
his health was still not helping him in many occasions. So he really in
Yes.
the Leela project.
Yes, 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 yes. Yeah, thank you. So yes, Prabhupada had many health issues, but Prabhupada, never stopped his service. He took treatment and all, but he never stopped his service. And he did not frustrate, or he did not curse Krishna and all, no, while he's doing this and all. So he always took it in the right spirit and went ahead. And then okay, so and also Prabhupada also faced many failures in his preaching, but he never gave it up. He always understood. He always tried how to improve and how to innovate. He never blamed anyone for his failures and all. Okay. So then how Prabhupada was not carried away by material happiness. So Yamuna Vilas Prabhu, you want to answer?
Yes, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, I also want to give the example for the first point,
Yeah,
which
you
is
can tell.
I can.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
sure.
the first point, I remember this example when Srila Prabhupada just arrived in New York, and he was alone and he was mortified with different situation, like his belongings were stolen, and he was thinking he was thinking that I should return back. He was again going to that port to return back to India through Jalduta. But still Prabhupada thought, no, let me fulfill the mission of my spiritual master. So he stayed back.
Yes, yes,
So that is
yes.
one example, that although
Yes, yes.
mind was telling that I should go back, but Prabhupada didn't acted on that.
Okay.
And the third one, we can see that Prabhupada, when he was Radha Damodar, like a temple, he was still happy with very less, with simple life, not having much facilities. And even when he came in the West, he was still not too much affected by that, all facilities and everything. So in both situations, whether he was in Vrindavan or whether he was in the West, he was equipoised.
Yeah. So yeah, in West also he always kept himself in the stressed zone. He did not relax and wants to have some recreation and enjoy the facilities he got in the West. He was staying in penthouses. He was staying in bungalows, but he always kept on focused on preaching and always extended himself. Yeah. Now, for Prabhupada did not pamper anyone. Prerna Matas, you want to answer for this?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yeah.
Prabhuji, for pampering, I can recollect that past time when Prabhupada asked Shyam Sundar Prabhu to carve the deities of Jagannath, Baldev and Subhadra. And once when Prabhupada went to see how much is the progress of carving the deities, Prabhupada saw that Shyam Sundar Prabhu was carving with one hand, and in one hand he was holding the cigarette. And Prabhupada very smoothly asked, let the cigarette come in between you and Krishna. Prabhupada was not harsh at that time. So he didn't pamper Shyam Sundar Prabhu. And for the fifth, Prabhupada didn't hate anyone. That pastime of one drunkard person, druggist person, came into the Prabhupada's lecture, and he was like very stinky, and no one is allowed him. No one was not happy to see him. But that person came straightway. He went into the toilet. He used the toilet. Then he again came back with some toilet papers. And while everyone was no, Prabhupada still accepted him. So
that's what he's creating distraction, but still Prabhupada saw something good in him.
Prabhupada didn't hate him.
Yeah, correct. Thank you. Yes, Deepali Mataji, you want to answer any question?
Yes, both and answer. The fourth one, he did not pamper anyone. That is, that many people were giving suggestions to Prabhupada. You know that these four regulatory principles are very hard to follow. If
Yeah.
you can reduce anyone, many people will follow the moment. But Prabhupada didn't, he didn't pamper there.
Yes,
Like he
yes,
was very,
yes. He's not after
and
followers. Yes. Next. Yeah, you can answer.
the
Sorry.
fifth one, Srila Prabhupada didn't see any uh, कमी नहीं देखी उन्होंने किसी में. He gave everybody the service where they he or she is best in that service.
Yeah. I think last time on, I think we saw the example of Tamal Krishna Maharaj and Purijan Prabhu. So one was giving $300 and another was giving $30,000. But no, Prabhupada did not discourage or did not put down Bharujan Prabhu. At the same time, Prabhupada did not pamper Tamal Krishna Maharaj. Yes. Okay, thank you. Sri Gangaputra Prabhu, want to ask?
Prabhuji, this regarding fourth one,
Yeah.
not even Prabhupada pampered devotees, but even outside also he was not like, if somebody is giving donation, he was not like, okay, you are giving donation, so like, that's fine. So he was like compromising basic things.
Yeah.
There was one example of when Gita having blank check to Prabhupada, and they was that like, you can write whatever amounts you want, like you give back our son. But Prabhupada was not like, okay, anyway we are getting donations, give it back. So that he was like very fixed on his.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay, so thank you very much. Still there are devotees, but I think because in the interest of time, we have to stop this exercise. Yeah, so we see these all as aspects of Sthita Prajna in Srila Prabhupada's life and activities, and maybe many other characters of Bhagavatam and all, and them also we can see. Okay, so now Krishna comes to answer. Krishna now will answer the third question. So the third question is Kim Asita. So how Sthita Prajna will control his senses. So we'll read the shloka. So Krishna is going to answer in the next 6 verses. So yeah. Yada samharate chayam kurmo angani va sarvashah.
यदा संहरते चायं कुर्मो अङ्गानिव सर्वशः
Indriyani indriyarthebhyastasya prajna pratishtita.
इन्द्रियाणि इन्द्रियार्थेभ्यस्तस्य प्रज्ञा प्रतिष्ठिता.
Okay. So Prabhupada writes the translation as one who is able to withdraw his senses from sense objects. Indriyani indriyarthebhyas. So indriyani means basically jnanendriyas and also karmendriyas. Jnanendriyas are eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and touch, skin. Sense objects means sight. Sight is for eyes, sound is for ears, smell is for nose, taste is for tongue, and touch is for skin. So these are the sense objects. So one who separates the senses from sense objects. As the tortoise draws its limbs within the shell, is firmly fixed in perfect consciousness. So basically, Sthita Prajna will separate the senses from their sense objects. So initially, Prabhupada is highlighting the importance of controlling the senses. Okay, Bhakti Leela Mataji is there?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Praveen Mataji, can you read this paragraph?
Yes, Prabhu. The taste of a yogi, devotee, or self-realized soul is that he is able to control the senses according to his plan. Most people, however, are servant of the senses and are thus directed by the dictation of the senses. That is the answer to the question as to how the yogi is situated. The senses are compared to venomous serpent. They want to act very loosely and without restriction. The yogi or the devotee must be very strong to control the serpent like a snake charmer. He never allows them to act independently. There are Many injunction in the revealed scriptures, some of them are do nots, and some of them are do's. Unless one is able to follow the do's and the don't, restricting oneself from the sense enjoyment, it is not possible to be firmly fixed in Krishna consciousness.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. So here Prabhupada is comparing how the senses has to snakes. Snakes are very vicious, very dangerous, and very fickle, very fast. So the senses are also very strong in that sense, very difficult. We see, like we can see the outside people, how they are so distracted, always absorbed in mobile. In mobile also, they are just going to from one thing to another, watching TV, different channels, always swiping the different channels and all. So the senses are very difficult to control. We even see how recently there is a DRDO scientist who was trapped by a Pakistani agent. So even people in big positions, people with great success, people who have shown good character for a long time, we see them also falling prey to the senses. So that's why senses are very strong. And even here, Krishna is telling not senses are strong for normal people, but even for the yogi, even for a person who is practicing spirituality, even for him, the senses are strong. So therefore, one has to be fixed. So one has to be very careful. One has to consciously control his senses. So now, so uh, so we can separate the senses from sense objects, but where the senses have to be engaged, the senses have to be engaged in service, in spirit, on the soul, at the soul platform, in Atma. So that Prabhupada is saying, similarly, the senses of the Krishna conscious person are used only for some particular purpose in the service of the Lord, and are withdrawn otherwise. So that's what, like a tortoise also, when it needs something, it has to eat something, then the mouth comes and all, and it eats its food. Otherwise, it withdraws the senses. So similarly, a spiritual practitioner or a devotee in Krishna consciousness, only for spiritual devotional purpose, he uses his senses. Otherwise, he withdraws his senses from the sense objects. Keeping the senses always in the service of the Lord is the example set by the analogy of the tortoise who keeps the senses with it. Okay, so this is the starting of the answer to the third question, how the yogi controls his senses. So he keeps, controlling senses means he always keeps his senses engaged in devotional service. So even among the senses, the most powerful ones are, it is said, like their eyes and ears. So it's one has to consciously engage both eyes and ears. Eyes are always after some attractive objects, something new, something wonderful, and ears are also wants to hear about different topics and all. So in Krishna consciousness, one can focus. There are beautiful devotees and beautiful deities, and there is opportunity for deity worship. So in that way, eyes can be engaged, and also devotees have painted also different paintings of pastimes, and ears can be engaged in hearing about Krishna and discussing about service with the devotees and all. So that way, one can keep his senses engaged. So as much as possible, one should have spiritual engagements. If otherwise, if one has, when one is in professional life and all, then at least sattvic engagements, at least they ensure that the senses are engaged, regulated. It's regulated sense gratification, but not unregulated and unrestricted sense gratification as much as possible. Okay. So now, the senses, separating senses from sense objects, it may happen also for some other reasons. So what is the speciality of a yogi separating senses from sense objects is being discussed in the next shloka. Because sometimes when there is no opportunity for sense gratification, then also somebody may look sense controlled. So then what is the speciality of the yogi who is controlling his senses. So that we will see in the next shloka. We'll decide.
Sorry, Prabhu, can I ask you one question regarding
Yeah, yeah.
this?
Sure, sure.
Sorry to disturb you in between, but
Yeah.
Prabhu, we may tend to refrain our senses coming in contact with the sense object, but at the same time, mind part remains there. That we may refrain, but whatever is going on in mind, that is continuously going on, by which we are getting disturbed. Although we are trying to get our senses separated from sense object, still in mind is contemplating on that sense object. Then how to deal with such a situation?
Yeah. So that's what. So that is also going to come in the subsequent verses. But so the solution is for the mind also has to have some engagement. Especially if we can find some engagement which is compatible with our nature in the in devotional service, so then it becomes little easy to engage mind. So that our mind will not be distracted, or mind will not ruminate or tempt give through sense gratification, but mind will be engaged. And over time, like through the process of sadhana and chanting, mind will slowly get purified. So the first thing that gets purified is intelligence. Then second thing, mind, it will take some time to get purified. It takes, sometimes we can also try, this is discussed in 6th chapter, like having a sattva-guna environment. Sattva-guna environment, naturally, mind will slowly gets calm. Like if you go to some farm community and all, or increase the sattva in the place where we are staying, in the place, so that also helps. Yeah. Okay, so we'll go to the next verse. Vishaya vinivartante niraharasya dehinah
विषया विनिवर्तन्ते निराहारस्ते
रसवर्ज्यं रसोऽप्यस्य परं दृष्ट्वा निवर्तते.
रसवर्गं
दृष्ट्वा निवर्तते.
दृष्टा निवर्तते.
Okay. So, Prabhupada gives the translation. Though the embodied soul may be restricted from sense enjoyment, the taste for all sense objects remains. But seizing such engagements by experiencing higher taste is fixed in consciousness. Okay. So there may be repression of senses in some other situations also. It's not just only a yogi represses his senses. Sometimes somebody may be poor, so he cannot afford opulent food. So he has to be he's forced to control his senses. Somebody may not be healthy. So here the word niraharasya is there. So it refers to that situation. If somebody may be advised by a doctor, you should not eat this. Like somebody has diabetes, then he was told you should not eat sugar-rich foods. You should not eat sweets. So then he also has separated his senses from sense objects. But is it that he is same as that yogi? Is his prajna is also sthita prajna? Is he sthita prajna? No. So the difference is, though there is separation of senses, vishaya vinivartante, but the rasa, the taste for sense objects still exists. But for a nishkama karma yoga, for the yogi, for the who is practicing nishkama karma yoga, his senses are separated from sense objects, vishaya vinivartante, and there is no taste for sense objects. Rasopyasya nivartate. Rasa is also not there. So that is the difference between austerity of worldly people. Like we also hear somebody that boxers they practice celibacy before few months of the tournament. So, and the singers who sing mundane songs also, they don't take sweets. So they also practice some austerity, but that austerity is different than this austerity. So we also see that story of Akbar Akbar says, Birbal makes this point that sex desire is very strong, but Akbar does not agree. Then Birbal takes him to a dying man and then asks Akbar to ask his daughter, young daughter, to go in front of the dying man. So then the dying man, initially his vision is focused on Akbar, but as soon as that girl comes, he's seeing her. So then Birbal makes the point that how even at this age that the taste for sense objects remain, though the facility and all is not there, but the taste is there. Okay. So how a Nishkama Karma Yogi, how he overcomes this taste for sense objects? By Param Drushta, by being situated in Atma. Means by being engaged in his prescribed duties and being focused on the knowledge of Atma. Yeah, also this example of Shivaji Maharaj is there. When a particular Muslim king is captured by his general, so he sends his daughter-in-law to Shivaji Maharaj as a gift. So, but Shivaji Maharaj, treats her as a mother and honors her and sends her back to her home. Yeah. Okay. So, who can read? Shaili Matas, can you read this list? The highlighted portion.
Yes, Prabhuji. Unless one is transcendentally situated, it is not possible to cease from sense enjoyment. The process of restriction from sense enjoyment by rules and regulations is something like restricting a diseased person from certain types of eatables. The patient, however, neither likes such restrictions nor loses his taste for eatables. Similarly, sense restriction by some spiritual processes like Ashtanga Yoga in the matter of Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayam, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, etc. is recommended for less intelligent persons who have no better knowledge.
Okay, thank you. So, yeah, here Prabhupada is telling how both taste also is important. Just for a diseased person, he may be restricted, but his taste remains. So both are important. Prabhupada is also saying how Krishna consciousness, it is easy to have that sense control, whereas in other parts of yoga, it is difficult a bit. Okay, so one of the tests of advancement is Bhaktir Pareshan Bhava Viraktiranyatra. In that verse of Bhagavatam, it says how much higher taste we have and how much lower taste we don't have. So this is one of the test of advancement. Yeah. Okay, so now Krishna is going to say how the senses, how difficult are the senses to control. Means is saying how one should be very, very careful. Even one is just focused on sense control, but the senses are very strong. Okay. Yatato hi api kaunteya purushasya vipashchitah.
यततो ह्यपि कौन्तेय पुरुषस्य विपश्चितः
Indriyani pramatini haranti prasabam manaha.
इन्द्रियाणि प्रमाथीनि हरन्ति प्रसभं मनः.
Okay. So here vipashchitaha means someone who has discriminating knowledge of Atma and is trying to control his senses. Which means what? Senses are not fully controlled, but senses are still, he's trying. So he's vipashchitaha. So even for him, the senses are very strong. So he has to focus control. Though even he has knowledge of Atma, but the senses are strong that they can overpower the intelligence. That's why they are called as pramathini. So that's why those who has control on senses, they are addressed as Maharaj in the terms. Okay. So Prabhupada illustrates that how senses are very difficult to control with the example of Vishwamitra. I'll read it. There are many learned sages, philosophers, and transcendentalists who try to conquer the senses. But in spite of their endeavors, even the greatest of them sometimes fall victim to material sense enjoyment due to agitated mind. Even Vishwamitra, a great sage and perfect yogi, was misled by Manaka into sex enjoyment. Although the yogi was endeavoring for sense control with severe types of penance and yoga practice. And of course, there are so many similar instances in the history of the world. Therefore, it is very difficult to control the mind and senses. Yeah. So that's what. The senses are very strong. Vishwamitra Muni, he was in summer, he was surrounding himself with several circles of fire in the desert, and he's practicing. And in winter, he's deep. He goes deep into the frozen waters of Gangotri and all, and he practices. But still, his senses overpowered him. So Prabhupada is giving the solution upfront, which Krishna is going to speak in the next shloka. That the solution for controlling the senses is matparaha. So that Krishna is going to give in the next shloka. Prabhupada is giving upfront how Krishna consciousness is the solution. So yadavadi mama cheta padaranga, the famous shloka of Yamunacharya, Krishna, Prabhupada is giving it. So we will discuss it in the next shloka more about how bhakti helps in controlling the senses. Okay, so we'll recite the shloka. Tani sarvani samyamya yukta asita matparaha.
Tani sarvani sanyamya yukta asita matpara.
Vashehi yasyendriyani tasya pragya pratishtita.
Vasehi yasya indriyani tasya pragya pratishtita.
So here, the Krishna is giving the solution matparaha. This is the first instance of Krishna mentioning about bhakti in Bhagavad Gita. Matparaha. So he should be devoted to me. Okay. So the translation goes like this: one who restrains his senses, keeping them under full control, and fixes his consciousness upon me is known as man of steady intelligence. So sarvani samyamya means sense control. Senses are controlled, trying to control his senses. Matparaha, devotion to God. Here, this devotion to God, it generally refers to Vishnu, and this is an anga of karma yoga. This is not talking about bhakti. This is not talking about Krishna consciousness. This is an anga of karma yoga. Okay. So how conquest of senses can be there? One should endeavor for sense control. Plus, there should be devotion to God, which is an anga of karma yoga. So that will lead to conquest of senses. Vashehi yasyendriyani. So this will help in conquering the senses. So, yeah. So in karma yoga, the goal is not bhakti. The goal is what? Purification from sinful reactions and liberation. So for that, one of the angas means there are different aspects of the karma yoga. One is main is following varnashrama dharma, but part of it is having devotion to Vishnu. Like while performing yajnas and all, they chant this Purusha Sukta prayers. So like that, there are aspects of Vishnu. They offer oblations to Vishnu. Om Achyutaya Namaha. So Vishnave Namaha. So these all Om Anantaya Namaha. So they offer oblations and all. So this is the bhakti element. So the bhakti element which Krishna is talking in this shloka refers to that. It is not referring, it's Krishna not indicating, you should chant my name, you should read about me, you should hear my pastimes, not that here. So in Bhakti Yoga, that Krishna will talk in the 9th chapter, Manmana Bhavanat Bhakta and all, not here. So in Bhakti Yoga, the goal is Bhakti, the means is also Bhakti. Okay, so some application, the sense control can in our life can refer to 4 regulative principles, and devotion refers to chanting. So which Prabhupada emphasizes on 4 regulative principles in chanting, which are part of initiation vows. So that will naturally lead to conquest of senses. Okay. Okay, so any questions till now? We have seen Krishna's answers to 2 questions. Any questions till now? Any questions on difference between Karma Yoga and Bhakti Yoga, the aspect of Bhakti? Yes, Yamuna will ask.
Prabhuji, I'm not able to understand like anga of like Bhakti is anga of Karma Yoga. Like what exactly it means, like
Yeah.
or
So
doing
that's
Karma
what.
Yoga with the devotion or what?
What
it means?
Yeah. So that's what. See, basically, Karma Yoga means one accepts. One accepts Bhagavan. One accepts Vishnu as the proprietor, controller, supreme lord of the universe or of the material creation. So that is important, but he is not attracted to Vishnu. He's attracted to Brahman, or he's attracted to get liberation or get purification from sinful reactions. So that is Karma Yoga. But devotion, Bhakti Yoga means that and his whole life, means his goal is to reach Krishna and attain the abode of Krishna. And the means is only bhakti. He need not do any karma and all. He is only 9 process of devotional service, hearing, chanting and all. So this is Bhakti Yoga. So the Karma Yoga, this Bhakti means this acceptance of Lord Vishnu and doing the worship that is part of Varnashrama duties to Vishnu. This is considered as Bhakti element in Karma Yoga. So this Bhakti element actually gives that success to a Karma Yogi. So without that Bhakti element, which Krishna will discuss in the next chapter and all, how important is that Bhakti element? If one has envious attitude towards, if one practicing Karma Yoga has envious attitude towards Vishnu and all, then he will fail in his endeavors. So that all Krishna is going to discuss future. Does it help?
Yes. Sorry.
Yes.
Prabhu.
Okay. Yes.
I just wanted to share something, Prabhu. I don't know whether it is right or wrong.
Yeah.
But Prabhuji, this Varnashram system which Krishna has given us. So this Varnashram system is meant for our purification, right, Prabhu? So when we are performing our Karma Yoga, we are performing Karma Yoga. At that time, we are doing all our duties. And at the time of while performing the duties, the purification is also happening hand in hand. We are performing our duties also. Now, being in Krishna consciousness, we are keeping center Krishna. We are keeping in center Krishna.
Yes.
And whatever we are earning, we are utilizing some part of it in Krishna's service. So ultimately, we are performing our Varnashram duty also, and at the same time, we are our duty towards Krishna also. Both the duties we are doing hand in hand.
Yeah.
So by performing the duty in whatever ashrama we are in, at one point we can reach to that perfection of Bhakti Yoga. Is that my understanding right, Prabhu?
Yes, Mataji. Yeah. So I will. There is a. Yeah, I'll just clarify something. See, we are performing Bhakti Yoga. Karma Yoga means what? One performs his Varnashrama, and this is his main sadhana to achieve his prayojan. Plus little bhakti element. So this pradhani bhuta, guna bhuta. So this thing will come in 7th chapter. He has a little small element of bhakti, and his main sadhana and means is varnashrama. So this is karma yoga. But we don't fall in that. So even grihasthas. So bhakti yoga means the main thing is bhakti. Why even a devotee does varnashrama, follow varnashrama because he's conditioned. So he has needs. He has a need to be in family and all. So that conditioning is there. So for that he performs his varnashrama. But he does not see varnashrama as a prime, sadhana to attain Krishna. So for a devotee, he sees the nine process of devotional service: Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Padasevanam. These as the main processes that is giving his Bhakti Yoga. So this is the difference between a Grihastha in Bhakti Yoga and let's say Grihastha in Karma Yoga. So how they see Varnashrama is different. So for Bhakti Yoga, Varnashrama is just a support system to get his needs fulfilled. Their needs may be even intellectual, emotional. They want to do something in the world, so that some material desires are there, even to regulate those material desires. But for a Karma Yoga, a Grihastha in Karma Yoga, his Varnashrama is the main thing to attain his purification, liberation, or attain Brahman. So the perspective is different. Yes, in any ashrama means your main devotional advancement is based on the 9 process of devotional service, hearing, chanting, and all. And irrespective of any ashrama you can do. So that is the way.
Thank you.
Okay. So these things will be more clarified maybe in NOD, but this understanding is needed to appreciate the concepts explained in NOD and all. So how Bhakti Yoga is the superior yoga among all yogas and all, these all things will come there. Okay. So Prabhupada here he tells about he contrasts that's what Durvasa Muni and Ambarish Maharaj. Of course, this is a contrast between again Karma Yoga and you can say Dhyana Yoga, Durvasa Muni, and Bhakti Yoga, Ambarish Maharaj is following, and how it is difficult to get higher taste, but it is also possible in Karma Yoga and all. But their challenges are very high in Karma Yoga. But in Bhakti Yoga, to get higher taste is very easy. So that's what Prabhupada contrasts. Okay. So Prabhupada is saying here, the senses can be completely controlled only by the strength of devotional service to Krishna. Also, the example of fire is sometimes given as a blazing fire burns everything within a room. Lord Vishnu, situated in the heart of the yogi, burns up all kinds of impurities. The Yoga Sutra also prescribes meditation on Vishnu and not meditation on the void. The so-called yogis who meditate on something other than Vishnu form simply waste their other than the Vishnu form simply waste their time in a vain search after some phantasmagoria. Okay. So that's what. See, if you see, Prabhupada also mentioned Vishnu and all. So this refers to the Bhakti element, the small Bhakti element within Karma Yoga. So this is important, and this actually helps the practitioners of Karma Yoga to control their senses. Okay. Okay, so now Krishna is going to explain how actually for a yogi who is endeavoring to control his senses, the senses distract him. How stepwise Krishna is going to give how the senses will distract a yogi. It applies even to us. Yeah. So this is an important shloka, means can help us practically and in analyzing also different situations in life, etc. Okay, so first we will cover both the shlokas and then we'll come to purport of Prabhupada. Okay, so dhyayato vishayam pumsa sangasteshu upajayate.
ध्यायतो विषयान् पुंसः सङ्गस्ते तेषु उपजायते
Sangat sanjayate kama, kamat krodho bijayate.
सङ्गात् सञ्जायते कामः कामात् क्रोधो अभिजायते.
Okay, so the translation. While contemplating the objects of the senses, a person develops attachment for them. And from such attachment, lust develops. and from lust, anger arises. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So first is contemplation on the objects of senses. So this contemplation refers to a contemplation where there is no spiritual focus. So when there is no spiritual focus, so one remembers the sense objects, dhyayato. So that leads to what? Sangha. So because it is very natural for the senses to get attracted to material sense objects. So one wants to contemplate more and more, remember the sense object more and more. In that way, the attachment to the sense object develops. So that is how Sangha happens. So once the Sangha happens, then one wants to enjoy the sense object. So that is lust, kama. So when the desire to enjoy, so one wants to enjoy, but there may be some obstacles in enjoying. Sometimes the yoga practice itself may be an obstacle, like in Bharat Maharaj's case. There may be different obstacles. So one will get frustrated, one will become angry. So the anger, no, it's a very strong emotion, even than lust. So it's like burning the heart. It's a very strong emotion. Okay, so this is the stage. The next shloka continues from anger. So we'll recite that also. Krodad bhavati sammoha, sammoha smriti vibhramaha.
Krodad bhavati sammoha, sammoha smriti vibhrama.
Smriti bhramshat buddhinasho, buddhinashat pranishyati.
Buddhibhamshat buddhinasho, buddhinashat pranashyati.
Okay. Bewilderment of memory. When memory is bewildered, intelligence is lost. And when intelligence is lost, one falls down again into the material pool. So one anger. So one becomes angry. It covers right and what is wrong. So that is greed. He just acts. So as starts covered the all back lost. The memory. So the inspiration and iteration that lost. Buddhinasha. Then pranashyati. Pranashyati means he did, but he goes and we can study it through Ajamil example. So Ajamil, most of you have was small that initially Ajamil is a pirate. So one fine day he goes to the forest, but there he encounters a so Ajamil there he did not he gets agitated, but he does not indulge in anything wrong. But that scene, that negative scene creates a very strong impression in him. So then after coming home, he contemplates on that. So there dhyayato, so he did dhyayato, and there is no spiritual focus. Just he was contemplating on the negative scene, on the prostitute and all. So as he contemplated more and more, sangha happened. So attachment. He got habituated to contemplate on that negative scene and the prostitute. So then the desire to enjoy the prostitute developed, kama. So then that kama became intense. So he wanted to act on that kama. So he goes to the prostitute and brings her home. But now his parents oppose him and tell him that this is not good and all. So then he develops anger because parents are opposing his lust. So then anger comes. So then he kicks his parents out. He also kicks his wife out. So in that way, he forgot what is right or wrong. He forgot himself now as a Brahmana and all. So then Krodha Bhavati Sammoha, illusion developed. So because of illusion, that all Smriti Vibhramaha. So that Brahmanas, being a Brahmana, worshipping Vishnu, all these things have been lost. Smriti Vibhramaha. Then the illusion, as he started serving the prostitute, the prostitute wanted money and all. So for that, then he started doing being a dacoit, doing robbery and all. So in that way, that not the determination to do devotional service, everything got lost, and he got fully into these activities of earning money illegally and feeding the prostitute, producing sons from giving birth to many sons from the prostitute. So in that way, he falls down. Okay. So we saw it through Ajamil example, these different stages of how the senses distract a practitioner of Karma Yoga. Okay. So initially Prabhupada says how the senses should be engaged, otherwise they will contemplate on sense objects. So Prabhupada says, one who is not Krishna conscious is subjected to material desires while contemplating the objects of the senses. So then the senses require real engagements. And if they are not engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, they will certainly seek engagement in the service of materialism. In the material world, everyone, including Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma, to say nothing of other demigods in the heavenly planets, is subjected to the influence of sense objects. Okay. So Prabhupada initially highlighted the how senses should have positive contemplation. Otherwise, negative contemplation is a default thing. Then Prabhupada elaborates on the example of Lord Shiva, Parvati and all. And he's contrasting it with Haridas example. Okay. So then Krodhat Bhavati Sammoha. Okay. Okay, we will first discuss some other things. Yeah. So that's why it is always good to nip in the bud. So it's always good to avoid the contemplation itself on the sense objects. Because that is, if there the temptations are not so strong, so there itself, if we can work on that, it is good. So always it is good to place ourselves in a devotional ambience and as much as possible. So there, that itself is easy. Otherwise, so we can see it's very easy to chant with focus relatively, in temple hall with the devotees in the Brahma Muhurta time. But it's not very difficult. Let's say we are traveling in a train with all sorts of people and not to chant, to focus on chanting, very difficult. Maybe so that's what. So that's why we can easily see that. So there we may not even come to know that we have fallen down, means we have lost spiritual focus in negative ambience. But in positive ambience, it is easy. And in positive ambience, the senses are engaged positively, so that the contemplations also may not come. But in negative atmosphere, especially very strong negative atmosphere, it's very difficult to even come to know. Sometimes it may be possible to come to know. We may come to know, okay, we are being distracted, like Ajamil's case. But still, because lack of association of devotees and all, he fell down. So that's why it is always good to as much as keep ourselves in association of devotees and spiritual ambience. So the same cycle, it can happen for short instance, or it can happen over long period of time if someone don't act, don't do anything about it, then this will continue, and it will slowly drag one away from Krishna consciousness. Okay. Yeah. So, and also when one comes to the stage of anger is like one may offend devotees. So that is a little dangerous situation. Because offending devotees means one will lose mercy of Krishna. So that way it becomes difficult. So it's always better to avoid the first stage itself on contemplation of sense objects. Even if it comes, at least it should not go towards anger. So, that way. Okay. Yeah, so yes, Prabhu Vilas.
Prabhuji, what is this Chandrayaan example?
No, that only. Yeah, let's say. Yeah, I'll tell. So even if this Chandrayaan, somebody means, let's say some devotee also is hearing that news or something, but there is no spiritual focus. So then one will get carried away by national pride, and so that way one will miss the. That's what. So the spiritual focus gets lost. So that's why I just wrote this example. Otherwise, if one is spiritually focused, one may also see, but he may see it from a spiritual perspective. Okay, India has a lot to offer, not this much. So that way.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's why I wrote it. So means we can see in day-to-day life, different situations we can analyze from this perspective, from this analysis. We can do this analysis for different situations of our own life and see where we are falling short, and we can always try to improve. Yeah. Okay. So here Prabhupada is contrasting the paths of Karma Yoga and along with Bhakti Yoga. How Bhakti Yoga, it is more easy to control senses. So yeah, by development of Krishna consciousness, one can know that everything has its use in the service of the Lord. Those who are without knowledge of Krishna consciousness artificially try to avoid material objects, and as a result, although they desire liberation from material bondage, they do not attain to the perfect stage of renunciation. Their so-called renunciation is called Falgu, or less important. On the other hand, a person in Krishna consciousness knows how to use everything in the service of the Lord. Therefore, he does not become a victim of material consciousness. For example, for an impersonalist, the Lord or the Absolute being impersonal cannot eat. Whereas an impersonalist tries to avoid good eatables, a devotee knows that Krishna is the supreme enjoyer and that he eats all that is offered to him in devotion. So after offering good eatables to the Lord, the devotee takes the remnants called prasadam. Thus everything becomes spiritualized and there is no danger of a downfall. The devotee takes prasadam in Krishna consciousness, whereas the non-devotee rejects it as material. The impersonalist therefore cannot enjoy life due to his artificial renunciation, and for this reason, the slight agitation of the mind pulls him down again into the pool of material existence. Yeah. So comparing with the impersonalist paths, where it's very difficult, means practicing jnana yoga, karma dhyana yoga and all, they're very difficult. So to suppress the senses and all, it's difficult, especially in Kali Yuga, where the capacity is less, where the environment is very degraded and all. It's difficult. It's more easy to practice Bhakti Yoga. It's not just devotees say that, but even there are some philosophers like Vivekananda and all, they also say for Kali Yuga, the process prescribed is Bhakti Yoga. So it means even other philosophers, other scholars, they also, after studying the Vedic texts and all, they also say that Bhakti Yoga is prescribed for Kali Yuga. Yeah. Okay, so on these two slokas, any other questions? Anyone? Okay, so now Krishna has completed the answer to the question of how a Sthita Prajna engages his senses. Not engages, how he controls his senses. Now, Kim asked.
One question, small
Yes, yes.
thing, bro.
Yes, yes.
This cycle of dhyate vishapumsa till pranashyati.
Yeah.
So person can be trapped in any of the stages.
Yes, yes,
In
possible.
between also, and he identify that himself that he's trapped at that particular stage out of 8
Yeah.
stages.
Yeah.
So the solution is, can we like frame in the bhakti word, or is there any different? He should look for different solution for different stages, or he should directly go for the bhakti process. Of course, we know that bhakti process is the ultimate solution, but still,
Yeah.
should he try for the specific solution for specific stage?
Yeah. Yes, Prabhu. So in the earlier, as Krishna told, Matparaha and as the Samyamya, both sense control and Matparaha. Because Matparaha, yeah, definitely we will get some purification and all, but sometimes the solution of bhakti may not take its full effect immediately. So that has to be done. Along with that, we can also see at a practical level how can we avoid that situation. Let's say it is just a bad contemplation, then how to avoid it. Or if there is that desire only, there is attachment. already attached, it has come to the stage of attachment. Then how to spiritualize and in a spiritual way if we can fulfill that attachment. So sometimes these solutions also are needed. Both are needed actually. Sometimes someone may not have that adhikar to directly take just the devotional solution. So both may be needed in most of the cases. Okay.
Okay, Purohit, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, like Prabhupada also told, sometimes Prabhupada also gave that advice to devotees, you can cook chenna, because the American people, they have that tendency to eat fish, meat and all. So Prabhupada did not say, Prabhupada told you should not eat, but Prabhupada also tried to give us some practical solution where the temptation may be reduced and all like that. Okay. So the next few shlokas, Krishna is going to answer the last question, where how a karma yogi practicing Nishkama Karma Yoga engages his senses. So because it is Nishkama Karma Yoga, you cannot just sit and just control his senses. But he has to also engage, because he has to perform his prescribed duty. He has to also engage his senses. So now Krishna is addressing how he will engage his senses so that he will be fixed in his path of yoga but not distracted. So that Krishna is going to answer. Ragadvesha vimuktaisthu vishayan indriyaischarana.
Ragadvesha vimuktestu vishayan indriyecharan.
Atmavasher vidheyatma prasadam adhigacchati.
Atmavasher vidheyatma prasadam adhigacchati.
Okay. So the translation goes like this. One whose mind is offered to me, even though he enjoys the sense objects with the senses, freed of attachment and repulsion, and under the control of the mind, attains a pure mind. So, Ragadvesha Vimuktaistu. So, one is freed from attachment and aversion at a material level. So, if the mind is freed from that, then he can engage his senses. Vishayan Indriyesh Charan. Vishayan, sense objects, Indriyaha, senses. The senses can be engaged with the sense objects. But at the same time, Atma Vasher, but the senses have to be controlled by the mind. And the mind has to be free from attachment and aversion. So for that, mind has to be engaged in, mind has to be focused on devotion to Lord. So this is the answer to the fourth question. So then one can engage his senses, and through engaging his senses, his mind will become further purified, or he will advance. Prasadam adhigacchati, in that way. So this is the condition. So the mind has to be free from attachment and aversion, and the senses also should be under the control of mind. Okay. So we can see. So that's what Krishna is just elaborating that Matpara thing also a little bit. So we can see honoring Prasadam, like if the mind is fixed, if the mind is conscious that this food is sanctified food, this is the mercy of the Lord, this is for the purification of tongue, of my tongue, uncontrolled tongue and all, which is there, this is all there in Prasadam prayers. So if that is the focus, then one may not be affected, get carried away by opulent prasad or something. But if that is not the thing, like if the prasadam, the conception is this is a nice food we can enjoy and all, if someone has that, then one can get carried away by that and all. So that's why one has to fix his mind in that. This is a small example, but there may be many other ways to do it in different situations. Okay. So Prabhupada is writing here. It is already explained that one may externally control the senses by some artificial process, but unless the senses are engaged in the transcendental service of the Lord, there is every chance of a fall. There is every chance of a fall. Although the person in full Krishna consciousness may apparently be on the sensual plane, Because of his being Krishna conscious, he has no attachment to sensual activities. So the Krishna conscious person is concerned only with the satisfaction of Krishna and nothing else. Therefore, he is transcendental to all attachment and detachment. So that's what. So the mind has to be engaged in Krishna. Yeah. Okay, so the purified intelligence means what? Generally, the intelligence with no right understanding of Krishna consciousness, and it is freed from wrong understanding. So that the matter gives enjoyment. So this is what is meant by purified intelligence, and it happens through the initial practice of Nishkama Karma Yoga. Yeah, I think someone has to be muted. Yeah. So then the purified mind, which Krishna is talking about, no, the mind raga dvesha vimuktaistu, which means there's the desires. Mind is generally a sum total of desires and emotions. So the desires should be focused on serving Krishna, devotees of Krishna, and emotions towards Krishna. No, there are prayers and also towards spiritual master and devotees. So in that way, mind is also getting spiritualized. So Krishna is making the point that if the mind is, to the extent mind is spiritualized, to that extent one can engage the senses with the sense objects of the world. And then one will not be so much disturbed. Okay. So Krishna will give the further benefits of this mind. Means as the mind becomes more spiritualized and spiritually focused, what are the benefits? प्रसादे सर्वदुःखानां हानिरस्योपजायते.
प्रसादे सर्वदुःखानां हानिरस्योपजायते.
प्रसन्नचेतसो ह्यासु बुद्धिपर्यवतिष्ठति.
प्रसन्नचेतसो ह्यासु बुद्धिर्पर्यवतिष्ठति.
Yes. Okay. So yeah, I think Prabhupada has not given any purport. So the translation is, from this pure mind arises destruction of all distress. Quickly the intelligence concentrated on Atma becomes completely fixed. So the two things, tasya sarva dukkhanam hanirasyopajayate. So he will be freed from distress, which means he will not identify with matter and all, and he will not be attached to matter because he is freed from attachment and aversion. So whatever materially he gets affected, materially dukkha he will not be affected. So as we discussed earlier, that even in case of ill health, like you see example of Prabhupada and all. So if the mind is focused on Krishna, then they will not be so much affected by the external material distress. And the intelligence becomes more and more fixed on Atma. So that is also happens. Because the distraction for intelligence comes mainly from mind. And if mind becomes more and more focused, so then the intelligence also will naturally become more and more focused. Yeah, so buddhi paryavatishthati and sarva dukkhanam hanirasyopajayate. So it's like a cycle actually. So with as the intelligence becomes pure through knowledge, so then the ability of intelligence to control and engage mind increases. So when the mind becomes engaged and focused on spiritual thing, the mind becomes pure and it will complement the intelligence. So then the intelligence becomes more strong. Then it can engage the mind also more. So that way they both complement each other. So with intelligence based on Atmagyan, one will control his senses, which means he will separate senses from sense objects. And he will be matpara, he will be devotion to the Lord. Because of this, both senses get controlled, then he will engage his mind also in devotion to Lord. So then mind also becomes freed from attachment and aversion. So then he can engage his senses with sense objects, and this will again further strengthen intelligence, and that intelligence again helps in sense control and all. So this is like thing. So the first cycle, the blue ones, this is more like sense control, which means for our case it may be more like sadhana phase. And this engaging the senses with the sense objects, this is more like the service phase. So the sadhana complement, they both complement each other. And freeing mind from attachment and aversion, it can refer to service attitude. So as we cultivate more and more service attitude, we can take more risks in service, or we can do more service, better service, and that will help us in doing better sadhana. So then they both complement each other. So that, yeah, Prabhupada did not write any purport here. Yeah. Yeah, we have some time to do. So you can take some 2 minutes, and we can discuss different examples, maybe in scriptures or even Prabhupada pastimes, where a person who has lot of challenge, whose senses are not controlled, but because of devotional service, their senses got controlled, and they became very spiritually intelligent. So you can think of some examples. Maybe we can take some 2 minutes. You can think of different examples, and we will discuss. We will hear from some at least 4 or 5 devotees. I'm just trying to tell you.
കണ്ടുകൊണ്ടിത് ഏകദേശം ആരാ
Yes, so anyone with examples of those who were previously, whose senses are not under control, but because of devotional service, their senses are controlled. Yes, anyone new? Okay, let me see. Yeah, Arun Pro, you can tell.
I was giving an example of Mrighari.
Okay,
That
yes.
Mrighari earlier was like hunter. They used to enjoy killing animals, half killed animals. And then when after getting initiation from Narad Muni, then he became devotee and like would be very cautious even not to kill anything.
Also, example of a prostitute comes who came to disturb Haridas Thakur, but then by practicing devotional service, she became devotee. And from Prabhupada's pastime, I was remembering, I read in Jewish stories, the Jewish story book, that there was Mr. Sethi who was like impersonalist. He was following some impersonalist leader. But being with Prabhupada, like he became like he converted, and even when Prabhupada would like chastise impersonalists, devotees would be little afraid that how will it, like what will he think, because he was a good donor and supporter. Then what Prabhupada would do, and just he writes there, like he says in that book, that he would always cherish when Prabhupada would criticize impersonalists. So he got converted being in association of Prabhupada.
Yeah, even Prabhupada tells him, I think, I remember, you are like a pig or something. Prabhupada tells him directly.
Yes. He says
Yes,
that you are a pig.
yeah. He will not mind and he accepts it. Yeah. Thank you very much. Nice examples. Then Prerna Mataji, you can tell.
Yes, the same example of Mrugari and Prabhupada's, so many Prabhupada's disciples who first were drug addicts and all that. But later now when we see them, they are totally in bliss because of following the four regulative principles and chanting the holy name. And also the example of Ajamila, when Ajamila was given the second chance, he completely purified himself and went to Vaikuntha.
Thank you.
And
So
if in perspective of material desires, we will see Dhruva Maharaj was initially having material desire to obtain the kingdom, but later he got converted into the service of the Lord.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much. So yes, Shreyas Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Guruji.
Yes,
I wanted to give the example of Bilva Mangal Thakur.
yes.
So initially he was attracted to the prostitute, and just to meet her, he tried different ways, and then when she spoke the words of wisdom, then he started to become a devotee. And second is Valmiki Muni also.
Yes. Well, yes. So what Krishna is saying, no, that being matpara and also one endeavors controlling senses. So that's what the formula given by Prabhupada, chanting the holy name and following four regulative principles. It will have effect in our life, and it has effect in others' lives. It will also have effect in our lives. Yes, Bhakti Lila Mataji, last you can tell.
Prabhuji, Jagai Madai's example we can give.
Yes. Very nice example. Okay. Yes, thank you. So Jagai Mada is also very graphic example like Valmiki and Mrugari. Thank you. So thank you for sharing. So that's what the science being talked about it, and here it works. But these people also they have endeavored, so that's why they could overcome it. So we also should endeavor, and Krishna has given several solutions to endeavor, where we should focus on, what we should focus on, how to deal with. So we should be spiritually focused. Better is to avoid the contemplation itself. So all those things Krishna has given. Okay, so now Krishna, in the next shloka, Krishna tells how the importance of the yoga, the process of yoga. So without that, what will be the predicament of others? नास्ति बुद्धिर अयुक्तस्य न च युक्तस्य भावना.
Astir buddhir ayutasya bhavana.
न च भावयतः शान्तिर अशान्तस्य कुतः सुखम्.
न च abhavayatah shantir shantasya kuta sukham.
So for one who is not performing yoga, ayuktasya. So ayukta means that's what one who is not on the path of yoga, or one who is not focused on devotion to Lord, which is an aspect of yoga. If one is neglecting that and he is doing yoga, for them also this applies. He will not have a fixed intelligence, buddhi, nor he will not have spiritual contemplation bhavana. Means his both mind also is not purified and his buddhi is also not purified. So then without such contemplation on the Atma, then there is no destruction of thirst for material objects, Shanti. So the material desires will be there. The intelligence will have material conceptions. And the mind will have material desires and material emotions towards material people. So this will not be purified. And they are temporary, they are always fluctuating. So there is no Shanti, there is no peace of mind as well as intelligence. So then how can a person who is afflicted by thirst for enjoyment, ashantasya, have happiness, which is characterized by realization of Atma with self-manifesting bliss? So then there is no question of happiness, means real happiness, spiritual happiness. So that's why this is important. Yukta means one should be focused on yoga. So we see like outside people, they're always carried away by whatever they see in mobile, whatever becomes popular, they get carried away. One day India may win cricket match, another way this, another time Chandrayaan, another time this happening in the world, that happening in the world. So all this, they don't have a focus, and they are always frustrated. They are always searching for something, but they are not satisfied. So there is no Shanti and there is no Sukha. That's why they are all focused on trying to invent some new gadgets, new ways of sense gratification and all. Okay. One can read. Mukundpad Pro, can you just read translation and this highlighted portion?
Yes, Prabhuji. One who is not, are you able to hear me, Prabhuji?
Yes.
Yeah. One who is not connected with the Supreme in Krishna consciousness can have neither transcendental intelligence nor a steady mind, without which there is no possibility of peace. And how can there be any happiness without peace?
Yes, so you can start from disturbance. Yes.
Disturbance is due to want of an ultimate goal, and when one is certain that Krishna is the enjoyer, proprietor, and friend of everyone and everything, then one can with a steady mind bring about peace. Therefore, one who is engaged without a relationship with Krishna is certainly always in distress and is without peace. However much he may make a show of peace and spiritual advancement in
life,
Krishna consciousness is a self-manifested peaceful condition which can be achieved only in relationship with Krishna.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so the peace and this satisfaction, this happiness is inbuilt in the process of Krishna consciousness. So one has to just take to the process, then automatically these things follow if one follows the process properly. Okay. Yeah, so this is a nice verse. It's a more universally, it is in a universal language. So, the importance of spiritual connection. So it's easy to reach out to new people. It's not so sectarian, telling about Krishna and all in this verse. So it's highlighting the importance of spiritual connection. Okay. So now Krishna is telling, even while engaging the senses also, there is danger that one can get carried away. So that Krishna is explaining in this verse. Earlier, Krishna explained the danger of being distracted while controlling the senses. Earlier, the focus is on controlling the senses. Maybe you can say an example of sadhana. But now the example is more of the situation is engaging the senses. So that it's more like analogous to seva, the situation of seva, or doing prescribed duties. Indriyanam hi charatam yanmano anuvidhiyate.
Indriyana hi charatam yanmano anuvidhiyate.
Tadasya harati pragyam vayor navam imambasi.
Tadasya harati pragya vayor navam Ivambasi.
So Krishna is giving an example of a boat being disturbed by a wind. So the likewise, let me read the translation purport. As a strong wind sweeps away a boat on the water, even one of the roaming senses on which the mind focuses can carry away man's intelligence. So earlier, there is a conflict between intelligence and senses directly. But now, there is conflict between first mind and senses, and then mind and intelligence. So mind is first distracted by the senses, and then the mind gets distracted, and then it further distracts intelligence. So Prabhupada is saying, unless all the senses are engaged in the service of the Lord, even one of them engaged in sense gratification can deviate the devotees from the path of transcendental advancement. As mentioned in the life of Maharaj Ambarisha, all of the senses must be engaged in Krishna consciousness, for that is the correct technique for controlling the mind. Yeah, so one has to ensure that all the senses as much as possible are engaged, and especially important is mind is engaged. So mind, it is as mind, if mind gets more and more purified, it becomes easier to engage the mind. Otherwise mind can be possibly engaged in engagements which are no which are according to one's nature, which are compatible. If one is interested in singing, if one is interested in talking to people, so they can be engaged in preaching. So then it may be easy to engage the mind. And for other senses, there are engagements in Krishna consciousness, so they can be engaged. If somebody is interested in doing some physical service, then they can be engaged in that. So that way. And also in relationships, also compatible relationships. If someone has a particular inspiration and attraction to a particular devotee, then they can it becomes easy to relate to that devotee and serve with them. So that way it becomes easy to keep the mind engaged. If someone is not able to connect with some particular devotee, then it may be little difficult to engage our mind fully while serving or relating with the devotee. So it's always better to try to get compatible situation and all. Always it may not be possible, but as much as possible. So so here mind is first distracted by senses, and then it is distracting the intelligence. So so before the verse it talks about intelligence versus senses. Here it is first senses versus mind, then mind versus intelligence. Okay. So that's what now Krishna is telling, that one should control all his senses, and that is by engaging in devotion to him. Tasmad yasya mahabaho nigrihitani sarvashah.
Tasmat yasya mahabaho nigruhitani sarvasha.
Indriyani indriyatebhyas tasya pragya pratishtita.
Indriyani indriyartebhya tasya pragya pratishtita.
So therefore, O mighty armed one, whose senses are restrained from their objects, is certainly of steady intelligence. So that's what. So one who has complete sense control, then one can be a Sita Pragya, that is one who is firmly fixed in yoga. So Prabhupada is saying in the purport, one can curb the forces of sense gratification only by means of Krishna consciousness or engaging all the senses in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. As enemies are curbed by superior force, the senses can similarly be curbed, not by any human endeavor, but only by keeping them engaged in the service of the Lord. One who has understood this, that only by Krishna consciousness is one really established in intelligence, and that one should practice this art under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master, is called sadhaka, or suitable candidate for liberation. Here Prabhupada is highlighting the importance of being under guidance. So being under guidance, there are others who will observe us, and who can help us in controlling our senses. So, and also supporting, strengthening our intelligence in our practice. So that is important. So that's what devotional advancement means, not just scholarship. Means even there may be stout intelligence, ability to memorize many verses, but that should also manifest in sense control. So sense control and detachment. So then it is a sure short sign of devotional advancement. Okay, so are there any questions before we stop? Or in today, what we have discussed? Okay. If there are no questions, okay, I'll just revise. So we started with the Sthita Prajna section today. So the first question of Arjuna, what are the symptoms of a Sthita Prajna? So Prajahati Kaman Partha Sarva Manogatam. So a Sthita Prajna stops all the desires arising from mind because they have come born out of interaction between senses and sense objects. The second, so then he's focused on Atmanyeva Atmani Tushta, that he's focused on spiritual desires and spiritual contemplation. And then the second question of Arjuna, how does a Sthita Prajna responds to provoking situations? So Dukkeshu Anudvigna Manaha, he is not affected in the situations of misery, and Sukeshu Vigata Spruha, he will not be carried away by material happiness and material comforts, and Vitaraga Bhayakrodha. Then the next verse, he will not be carried, he will not have any material affection based on material calculations. He will not flatter or he will not hate. So in detail, we discussed how Prabhupada demonstrated these attributes with several examples. So then the next question of Arjuna is asked, is answered by Krishna. How a Sthita Prajna controls his senses. It's about sense control. So then the example of tortoise is given. He separates the senses from sense objects. Along with that, the taste for sense objects also is not there. How that comes up, how that happens? By being matpara, by having that element of devotion to Lord Vishnu generally. This is an anga of bhakti in karma yoga. This is an anga of karma yoga, not this is bhakti yoga. So we saw also the difference between bhakti yoga and karma yoga, and the element of bhakti element in karma yoga. So that bhakti element refers to chanting the names of Vishnu, Purusha Shukta prayers, offering oblations to Vishnu, like that. And basically accepting Vishnu or Bhagavan as the Supreme Lord, but he may not be attracted to it. Okay, so this matpara element helps in sense control. So then we also saw Dhyayato Vishyan Pumsaha, that the cycle, how the senses can get distracted, how the senses will slowly lead to distraction and degradation for a yogi, for a sadhaka in karma yoga. So then Krishna answers the last question, how to engage senses. So for that, Krishna says one should have pure mind, raga dvesha vimuktaistu. So for that also, the mind should be in consciousness of God. So spiritually, mind also should have spiritual absorption. So for that, the desires and emotions should be dotted in Krishna consciousness. Then Raga Dvesha Vimukta. Then how the benefits of a controlled mind we saw. Then how if somebody is not practicing yoga, ayuktasya, if somebody does not have any spiritual connection and not practicing any spiritual process, his intelligence is not clear and his mind is also not pure. So then he will not have he will not have any peace, and one can forget about having any bliss. So then Krishna tells how even while engaging senses, previous thing was about controlling senses, which is more like the situation of sadhana. And the engaging senses is more like the situation of seva. So there also one has to be very careful that the senses are, one mind can get carried away by senses, which can carry away the intelligence. So one has to be even careful at that time. So for that, mind has to be engaged. So if mind can have compatible engagement, compatible relationships, it is easy in the initial times. Then one gets more purified, it will be easy to engage mind. Yeah. Also in the Yoga Sutra, there are 5 stages of mind: Vikshepa, Vikshipta, Moda, Shipta, Ekagra, and Nirodha. So this maybe we will see in the 6th chapter, how the mind slowly gets controlled. And now Krishna tells that all the senses have to be engaged. So then one can be really fixed. So tomorrow there are only 4 slokas. And we'll complete the 2nd chapter and have a little overview of the 2nd chapter. And I think an OBA question is based. Maybe I'll discuss that. Then we'll go to the 3rd chapter. Okay. Thank you very much for your participation. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Ancha kalpatarubhyasya prasarabhyasya pattam pavanam vaishnavibhyo namo namaha.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.